Okay, thanks, Markus. So, as he said, I'm Benedikt Kämpgen from KIT in Karlsruhe, and I would like to present work I've done together with a master's student of mine on how to use Semantic MediaWiki for collaborative financial analysis. So, typically, good companies, they tend to use for financial analysis a two-step approach. First, with an ETL procedure for filling in a data warehouse, and secondly, spreadsheets with Excel for reporting and analysis and discussions. Using Excel, of course, it's quite difficult to do that really in a collaborative way, because typically you would do the discussion offline in mails or in meetings. So all the rationale, all the reasons would not be captured within the data warehouse. And of course, if you would do some action on a certain decision, you would not store why you actually have done it. But this exactly is crucial in financial analysis, because you want to have lessons learned for follow-up decisions. And also, if you have fluctuation in your company and you have new people coming up for doing the financial analysis, and the information is not kept, then it's more difficult for them to get familiar with the processes. So we basically have two questions. We have first, can Semantic MediaWiki replace common data warehousing and Excel spreadsheet analysis? And secondly, whether Semantic MediaWiki can actually allow, on top of that, collaborative analysis of financial data. And since the master thesis has not been going on for too long, we have for now concentrated on the first part, so the question of whether actually Semantic MediaWiki is a good idea to do spreadsheet analysis with. Now, sorry, one thing that's getting on my nerves. Much better, because now I can see that. Sorry about that. So the use case that the case study that we now run was that within our research group, we have a group of 3 people, including me, that is responsible for the financial management. So we do the management of third-party funding of around 30 people. And we use data sources such as metadata about personnel, projects, and so on, and planning of expenses and of budget. And we do that using Excel, and we store the Excel in an SVN repository, which you can already see is not that collaborative. It's quite a hassle, actually. And finally, we have accounting transactions from a university data warehouse. That is also very important, because our tasks now are, we need to daily create and edit plans and plans for budgets and for expenses, like travel expenses, for example. And also we need to do monthly import and check of accounting transactions, so whether actually all the plans that we have done occur in the transactional system of the university. And here, you can imagine collaboration is quite crucial. The requirements are that we need spreadsheet analysis. So for example, we need an overview of people, of projects. We need pivot analysis. So we need to compare the budget that we have for projects, what we plan to spend in these projects, and what is actually in the end come to the accounting of this project. So these numbers we need to compare. And also we need to compare we have to create a personnel table, make sure that every person within our group gets each month his money. So we need to know which project is actually paying his wages. And collaboration is here, for example, important that we annotate these decisions, who is working for which project, who would be good to work on a certain project, for example. Also, synchronous editing would be nice. With Excel, we are not able to do that at the moment. Or security. I mean, sending around Excel sheets is not that nice. Using Google for putting this information somewhere on the web would not be an option either. But again, we are not focusing on this collaborative aspects. We now want to know whether we can use Semantic MediaWiki for the first part. So our architecture is, the user can input data through semantic forms. These are the plans basically. And on the other hand, on the other side, we get data automatically imported using an import script from the university data warehouse with the transactions. And for output, you would now use, first of all, inline queries, secondly, result formats for visualizations, and last but not least, in my opinion, the most important part, Semantic MediaWiki is connected to a triple store, and using Spark, Danny mentioned it this morning, using Spark, we directly query the database, the triple store, for visualizations. So here you see an example of how we do that for expenses and budgets. So here the user can create using forms a travel plan, and then using inline queries or result formats, we would have an overview of when is the next travel going on, and when do we have expenses for that. You will see that this is all anonymized, of course. So far we have a wiki with anonymized data with it, where we actually tried this out. And our goal is to have that in the end in a production system within our group. So I won't go into the details, but this is the part of the ER diagram of how the entities are linked within the wiki. So that, for example, you have plans that are related to persons, of course, that are related to certain finance categories or to a certain project, of course. And the question now is, how do we query this? How do we model this kind of information? Because it's kind of statistics, as you see. So we've used for that the RDF data cube vocabulary, which is linked data vocabulary, and we imported it into the wiki and basically reuse their vocabulary, their URIs, in order to then know what kind of queries, what kind of Sparkle queries do we need to query this data. So the RDF data cube vocabulary would store the data as a data cube. We would have account transactions as the basic fact within the data cubes with its dimensions like project or person. And the measure is, of course, among others, the amount which is summed up. So, as I said, we are also interested in the transaction data coming from the data warehouse of the university. And this is only implicitly connected to the plans that we have, because it's very difficult. If someone of you has done that ever, it's really a pain in the whatever. Checking what are the plans, what are the actual accounting transactions for these plans. You don't want to do this matching all the time. So there is an implicit connection between the both. And this is done through additional properties. Like, for example, a project of a transaction is connected to its project through a project account. And through this link, you can actually connect both. And in this way, we are able to import these transactions into the triple store. We use the same vocabulary as all the data from the plans are using. And using pre-processing construct queries, we align it further. And in the end, we can just query over all of this data within one Sparkle query, within one schema, basically. And you see that here. So we have within the wiki, we have around 3,500 observations. But in the triple store, of course, this is asked by Spark. We have over 9,000 of it, because we have all the transactions with it. Here is now the example of how we implemented the comparison of budget planning, expense planning, and accounting transaction. You see that here. So we ask in a pivot table. Thanks. We ask in a pivot table for a certain project, what kind of budget do we have here? 60,000. Then how much personnel planning have we done? What are we planning? So we planned 66,000. That's fine because we plan very conservative according to the wages. So that's fine. And expenses are 55,000 currently. So it's fine. This is one way of checking whether a project is doing fine, especially if it has run out. We haven't spent all the money, so that's not a good thing maybe. But still, next thing is the personnel table. So we need an overview of who is paid by which project, and whether for each project we have enough people and so on. And here we have the pivot table per project and per person. And you see, for example, per project, you see that one person, so these anonymized persons, we have one that is throughout paid by the project, and one who's just in between for a certain task, for example, paid by the project. And here we have that per person. So we are wondering, okay, by which project is a certain person paid? And here we see the projects, and typically shouldn't get 200% of its wages. So this is fine. Okay, so the lessons learned of this case study so far. First of all, maintainability. I'm not sure whether maintainability is, it is really crucial that this system in the end is maintainable, because if I'm leaving and someone else is doing the finance with other people, and they would maybe fall back to Excel if this system is not maintainable. And so far there were quite a lot of bugs, so I have some difficulties with connecting Spark and Sesame. So for example, cross-site scripting to get that running, and to make possible that Sesame is printing out JSON and not ADIF XML and so on. So these technical problems you always have. But on the good side, we are quite amazed of the query capabilities. So with Sparkle 1.1 of Sesame, we can do all kind of queries what we didn't have the chance of doing within Excel. Performance is no problem either. So 6,000 transactions from the university data warehouse only in a couple of minutes. Of course, it's not too much data, but still that is an important issue. Agility. So if we want to change a lot of plans, for example, because we want to add a constant factor or something. So this could be easily just by changing a template. And so that's quite agile. And robustness, by seeing red links at the certain plans, for example, you would immediately see that you have not linked the pages. And as you can imagine, not linking a person to the proper project would in the end lead to having someone not paid by a real project. It's not working. So this is quite important, of course. Outlook. So far we have mainly tried all the capabilities. We have not used it in a real production context. This we really would like to do, and in this context we of course have other queries coming up. So for example, who is notoriously underestimating their travel costs, for example? That would be something that I would be very interested in, but it's quite difficult to find out these kind of questions. Also, of course, in the end, because we use Semantic MediaWiki, and the main reason for doing this are the collaborative features. And so in the end, we would like to know whether we're actually using it for discussions, for comments, talk pages, and so on, and whether it really helps to have this synchronous editing with recent changes for staying up to date. So I'm quite interested in whether that works, and any feedback on how we do this how we should do this kind of evaluation would be very welcome. And also we would like to extend the system. So far you've seen very simple pivot analysis. So we don't really support hierarchies and so on, and Excel Power Pivot is doing all that. So we need to add some of this functionality to Semantic MediaWiki as well, to visualizations. And here we would like to integrate an OLAP viewer. So these are plans. And for conclusion, I want to show you that Semantic MediaWiki indeed can be used for spreadsheet analysis. So for overview tables, pivot tables, or diagrams like the timeline. The lessons learned, I hope, are not only relevant in the financial domain, but also in other financial domains, like data integration of the transaction data and the plans that I've shown. And finally, we really want to evaluate the collaborative functionality of Semantic MediaWiki in this context, like discussions and synchronous editing. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Benedikt. That was, again, quick. We have some time for questions left. Please don't be shy. There is none yet. I have one, actually. This is one of these rather complicated, or advanced, I should say, wiki applications that are very useful, and you put them to interesting use in the context here, and which other people may want to use as well. In what kind of form can you imagine to share this application with someone else? Is it like a wiki dump of a lot of property declarations and forms together with some scripts, or what would you do there?
I think that, yeah. So currently, my master student and I, we are exchanging it using dumps. Yeah, so this is one way, but of course, we would not be able to give this kind of data to anyone anyway, especially if it's in the production use. But what you could imagine is to either have a use case technical report of describing of how you did that. This is one way to make clear how all the extensions were used. On the other hand, it's basically only an idea of combining different extensions. So if the extensions themselves, the single parts, are documented sufficiently, and then I think most people can come up with it by themselves.
Well, yeah, I mean, Photoshop is documented very well. Not everybody can take beautiful pictures with it. I mean, sometimes you need some input and help, and I think this is, at least from my perspective, something we are lacking, because in a way, with these extensions, we enable users to control much of the wiki, to take the role that developers used to have in the past. In the past, everything needs to be programmed. Now users can actually do it in the wiki, but of course it's still an immense effort involved to come up with these things, and somehow it's not so easy for us to share these things as it was easy to share programs. So I think there's certainly...
Yeah, I think you have a point. Exactly, and these are the advantages of systems like Blue Spice Wiki of Marcus, that they have their packages of using for certain use cases, for certain domains, and there's still the risk that this system that I've just now created is not maintainable, because if it's not maintainable, it's not that easy to share either. If I can make a package out of that, it would be the thing I would like to do, because this way I could make sure that after I left, everyone would can use this package in a way.
Yeah, and I mean, many groups mention finances and don't have a master student who is fit enough to.
Yeah, he's very fit. He's
okay.
Good.
Any other questions on that subject? Yes, Jaro.
Sorry? Which project? Can you ask him why he's asking? No. Okay, I will talk to him by myself. But I mean, this is not done within any research project, because this is, for me, no real research. Semantic MediaWiki is, for me, a hobby. So I try to apply it to as many possible use cases as I can find. And I'm busy with doing the financial management at our group. So I'm trying to find a way to enhance it. And Semantic MediaWiki is one way. And I'm hoping that I have not said anything which is which is not right.
So you use internally in your group?
Of course, exactly. That's just
So it's no external client?
No. That's only within our group. We need to do the budget management anyway, and we try to figure out how to do that the most efficient way. Is that fine with Jaron? Jaron, is that fine for you?
That's just for recording, actually. This microphone is
Okay.
not for the webcast. It's another one. Yeah, I mean, that's not a negative thing at all if it's not research. If you do it just because you think it's useful, it may actually be more valuable.
Exactly. No one forces me to do that.
Yeah.
That's my free time.
On the other hand, there is design research. I mean, designing complex systems for business processes is definitely a research topic as well. But let's not digress too much here.
Are you storing all the data in the wiki? Did I get this right? Like all the transactions, like
That's the plan. Yeah. As I shown, that only dummy and anonymous data so far, but we plan to put all of the data in the wiki. It should not be a performance problem if you mean that.
No, the wiki pages will appear.
It depends. If you mean comments and I don't know. I mean, I could show you the pages. They are just very structured so far because it's only one template call per page per plan, for example, and all the transaction, maybe I wasn't clear there, but all the transactions from the university data warehouse, they are not stored in the wiki. They are stored in another graph of the triple store, and we are only querying them together with the data of the wiki with Sparkle queries. So we don't have a page for all of these 6,000 transactions. There wouldn't be no point in doing that, in my opinion.
But you have a page for one person assigned to the project in one day.
Exactly.
So this looks good.
Yeah, that's transaction data. Huh?
Right.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, any other questions? If not, then let's thank the speaker again. And,